Alright, let's take a look at the latest Eagles roster cuts as we approach the deadline. What did cornerback James Bradberry say that suggests Eli Ricks will make the final roster? Sidney Brown is pushing for the starting job, and is Nolan Smith's injury worse than we thought? Let's get into it, but first, let's run it. Hey guys, in case you don't know, I'm Josh and I cover the birds. I've had some comments recently about the shirts that I've been wearing, which this time it's obviously Jalen the Breadman Carter, and I've got a link in the description below if you want one. Also, people have asked why is his nickname the Breadman, and I think it's fairly obvious, because he's a good cook. Alright, no, not really. My assumption is that it's the fact that he's a one-of-a-kind special talent and gonna get that bread. So go ahead and cop one. In case you're wondering, this is actually not my shirt, like I didn't actually create it. It's on Jalen's website and all the proceeds go to him, but I think it's just too dope not to share. Since, you know, just like NBC's Roob Frank predicted, Jalen Carter would be the story of Eagles training camp, and boy was he ever, like Tim McManus said, making a number of wow plays, most notably when he beat Ravens guard Ben Cleveland on his very first snap of action in the NFL. Oh yeah, and also the time he put Cleveland Browns All-Pro guard Joel Bitonio flat on his back during joint practices. If you recall, leaving Bitonio to complain about potential cheap shots on quarterback Deshaun Watson. Alright, maybe he got carried away, who knows? Yet it's also what Eagles vet Fletcher Cox has begun to expect, saying the biggest evidence for JC being ready to succeed is seeing him go out there and destroy people and being a pro. Jalen's soaking it up every day and learning each day. Plus, let's not forget it's kind of hard for a baby rhino to go easy, which BG absolutely loves.
I'm loving the name Baby Rhino because that boy is, man, he is a ram. And if you get it all the way in shape and be able to go all the time, man, he definitely gonna have people not want to see him every week.
Sure, other teams may not want to see him, but I can't wait. And believe it or not, we're less than 2 weeks away from the start of the regular season. Or if you want a more personal experience with the bread collecting baby rhino, you can actually purchase tickets for an autographed meet and greet. Once again, I've got more details in the description for those that are interested. And shout out to Philly Dogs on Twitter for that info. If you're not following them already, you definitely should be, since they're up to date on all things, well, Philly Dogs. Speaking of them Georgia dudes, Nolan Smith is also another guy that you can meet and get an autograph from. Not really a surprise, but you guys know I'm definitely down for that, especially with Superman's crazy potential and insane work ethic, as Nolan somewhat surprisingly stole the show from Carter toward the beginning of camp and looked solid in the matchup against the Browns as well, although ever since that game when Smith got dinged up on his right shoulder, we haven't seen or heard of the Rook practicing, as he was once again held out of the most recent practice and wasn't wearing a helmet. I guess the question is, should we be concerned? Okay, probably not, since remember, Nolan said after his injury that he wasn't worried about his shoulder, and the Eagles simply took him out due to precautionary reasons, eventually going to the locker room for some icy hot and was back to 100%. Except it's not nothing, or why else would the Rook not be practicing over a week since suffering the injury? I don't know, am I crazy or what do y'all think? I should note that I think Nolan's gonna be fine and he's got plenty of time to get ready for the opener, but definitely something to continue to monitor with his injury history. However, Roob isn't too worried, even saying he'd be surprised if Nolan doesn't make a run at the Eagles' rookie sack record for edge rushers, which is 6, set by Derek Burgess in 2001. By the way, you may be thinking Reggie White had way more, but technically he wasn't a rookie since he had played in the USFL. Either way, Smith's expectations are massive. With his supreme confidence, tons of experience against top offensive tackles in the SEC, an array of moves, an explosive first step, and an ability to get low and turn the corner quickly, while attacking tackles before they have the chance to anchor. Plus, as Roob said, he's got the luxury of playing on a loaded defensive line. Imagine being an offensive tackle and trying to figure out Josh Sweat or Hassan Reddick for a couple series, and then all of a sudden, here comes a fresh Superman off the bench. That's going to be fun to watch. And so will Sidney Brown, who may not be the starter just yet, but was arguably the most impressive safety in the preseason, playing 76 coverage snaps, allowing 0 receptions, and racking up 13 tackles, while flying all over the field. Not bad for a guy who said, when I walked into rookie minicamp, I didn't understand a dang thing about this defense, but now I'm understanding the different concepts and what my 1/11th is on the field, which apparently is being noticed all over the place, as Josh Tolentino shared last week that Sidney Brown's play recognition is now bussin', as he continues to make plays and registered a sack on a zone read. It's really only a matter of time before this dude earns the starting job, with defensive coordinator Sean Desai recognizing significant progress in Brown's understanding of the defense, as the DC continues to test out all kinds of combinations, including putting All-Pro cornerback James James Bradberry at the slot because Desai said it's about getting the best 11 guys on the field in different ways. Okay, I talked about this more in a previous video, but I think you're seeing the fact that the Birds will be playing several teams who use tight ends as the cause for Bradberry getting moved to the new role. For example, as the Inquirer pointed out, according to Pro Football Focus, Darren Waller lined up in the slot 66% of the time with the Las Vegas Raiders last season, and Travis Kelce spent 44% of his time in the slot, which Eagles tight end Dallas Goedert certainly sees the benefit, saying, just facing somebody like Bradberry, it makes you work a little bit harder. When you go up against a linebacker, a little jab might work. But James is more patient. He's seen it, and he's a really smart player. So you have to make sure you're on all your fundamentals when you're going against him. Come on, if Goddard recognizes the benefit of making this move and it makes his life a little bit more difficult, then I'm all for it. Plus, there may be one more hidden reason for getting Bradberry into the slot.
He just asked me to get in there to try to pretty much, one, help me out with my overall knowledge of the game, and then you just never know how the league works, you know. Of course, we have a set number of DBs that's going to be in there. It's a long season. Injuries always happen. You never know. My name and number might be called once I get in there.
All right, yeah, we all know that injuries happen, and it's great for the overall knowledge of the game, but I feel like when Bradberry said set number of DBs, that he was alluding to the fact that conversations with Desai have already happened about potentially moving around or having some different guys in there. After all, I don't think it's a secret that cornerback Josh Jobe appears to have taken the next step, getting praised by multiple members of the Eagles and making some really good plays in practice. So if Philly wants to occasionally move Jobe outside and put Bradberry inside, that would allow for even more versatility on the defense. I also don't think it's a coincidence that this started happening right after Zach McPherson suffered his season-ending injury. It wouldn't surprise me if Desai took a look at how he could incorporate Eli Ricks into the roster. Because let's face it, if Ricks doesn't make the 53-man, he's definitely not clearing waivers. The dude's getting picked up by somebody. You aren't sneaking a guy who had a 90.2 PFF grade this preseason on 109 snaps, the highest of 105 corners who played at least 50 snaps this preseason, and a coverage grade of 90.2, which was also the highest. Even his run defense grade of 67.6 was better than average, ranking 40th out of 105. At this point, given the injuries, recent positional movements, and Desai's desire to get playmakers on the field, it seems like a foregone conclusion that Ricks will make the roster, but we'll have to wait and see officially at 4 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. Unfortunately, for several players, they already know they won't be making the team, with Tyree Jackson, Ian Book, and Dennis Kelly being the notable names to be cut so far, although nothing really too shocking yet. I'm interested to see if Devin Allen can somehow grab a spot as a returner and gunner, yet it feels more likely that we'll be stuck with the likes of Britton Covey in the return game. I hope I'm wrong. But talking about special teams, kudos to everyone. As you know, you're an Eagles fan when you spend Sunday morning looking to see if another team cut a punter that you've never heard of before but are about to desperately want. Or maybe it's a guy you already know, since former Eagles punter Ty Zentner had a 52-yard punt filling in for Texans punter Cameron Johnston, and is now undoubtedly going to be the best punter in the NFL.
I'm telling you, you've got the wrong guy. You've got the wrong guy.
All right, it's not that bad, and as we've already talked about, Zentner wasn't the answer, but I don't think Siposs is either. On the positive side, at least we're not wishing we had a different starting quarterback. I mean, it could be worse, like the Cowboys already trading for 49ers former quarterback and first-round pick Trey Lance, and then Jerry Jones following it up to admit they wanted to draft Jalen Hurts.
2 years ago, we were looking at Philadelphia quarterback, I'm not going to call any names, but looking at him. Had he fallen to us there, we would have drafted him. It is our plan when we can, but it very seldom happens to have someone of high enough quality to be there at the right place with our draft pick.
Cool. Glad you think this trade worked out for you. Only one problem with your statement, Jerry. You could have drafted Hurts back in 2020. Like Thomas Peterson pointed out, the Cowboys drafted 51st overall. Hurts was picked 53. It's not like he didn't have a chance. He just blew it. Of course, they selected Trayvon Diggs, which was a pretty good pick, and thankfully that left Jalen to us. However, it's clearly saying something when you're admitting to the rest of the league that you wish you had Jalen Hurts. Like, why else bring it up? Either way, I'm not too concerned about it, but it does put a smile on my face when I hear of the regret from Jerry. Some other good news is that Moro Ajomo, who suffered the concussion injury in the second preseason game, is back at practice, as is Britton Covey and Mario Goodrich. All right, won't be long before we get the official 53-man roster list, so let me know in the comments who you guys think makes it and who doesn't ahead of tomorrow's deadline. This has been the Philly Special.